There's a song called God Save the Queen, sung all the bloody time. It's not irrational, it's coaching. That's coaching, hypnosis, brainwashing, conditioning. I've got it as well. I'm happy to give them 61p a year to stay around. It's not 61p, mate. It's freedom that you're paying. It's costing you a lot more than money to have her on your money. The function that she fulfills is totemic, isn't it? It's the idea that our tribe comes together under this icon. But just get a rabbit or something. Like the old days, it would have just been a rabbit. I'm not unpatriotic. I love England. I just think by saving our Queen, we're destroying ourselves. I'm wearing black as a mark of respect to the many people in services, to the older generation, to the people even younger than me that will consider Queen Elizabeth II to be a significant figure and a representative of our nation. I'm wearing black too because she's a human being who has been ubiquitously present in the lives of everybody. I am respectful of the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II and respectful of the death of Queen Elizabeth II as I would be of any human being, but this is not any human being. This is a symbol, and symbols can be mutable. There is not a universal Queen Elizabeth II. She will mean many things to many people, but she means something to all of us, and I'm respectful of that fact.
So hello again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I like to start my videos by saying that because it always annoys the worst people who love to remind me in the comments that Vietnam isn't socialist. It's like when I posted finally living in communism on my community tab, and people were taking that very, very seriously and getting very, very angry I would say such a thing. So I think I'll just keep saying it because people seem to get annoyed by it. But anyway, today we are talking again about Russell Brand. Now, if you have subscribed to this channel since I was living in Spain in about February, March, I made a really, really long video split into two parts about Russell Brand's political evolution, because for a long, long time, Russell Brand was the only left-wing English YouTuber on this whole platform. But now Russell Brand is not a left-wing YouTuber. He is a centrist ego grifter. I'll explain that a bit later, leaving only me as the sole remaining English-Irish leftist YouTuber. It's a heavy burden to bear, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job as the only person in England who talks about left-wing politics on their own YouTube channel. But today I want to expand on something that we spoke about in the Russell Brand videos, and that is Russell Brand's opinion on the monarchy. Now, Russell Brand has always hated the monarchy since he started his YouTube channel back in 2014, but it seems with the recent passing of the Queen, that shows the stark contrast between Russell in 2014-15 and Russell in 2022. And maybe you can see some of his old opinions in there, but because he's an ego grifter, he no longer wants to actually speak his real opinions on the royal family because he really hates them, and he also really doesn't like the Queen. But from his recent videos covering the Queen, you would not get the impression he doesn't like the Queen, and you can also see massive contradictions in the way he talks about the Queen, talking about respecting her, talking about her doing the best with the hand she was dealt. I expect that Russell in 2015 would call out Russell in 2022. And what I mean by ego grifter is I don't think Russell Brand necessarily takes his positions for money. I think he does it because he wants to build a massive audience, and he likes the attention, and he likes people thinking of him as this, like, you know, political figure, philosophical figure, things like that. Because if you go on his YouTube channel right now, he has no problem attacking powerful people. He has no problem attacking like very, very well-known billionaires or political figures. He loves to attack Justin Trudeau. He likes to attack Bill Gates. He likes to attack Joe Biden. He likes to attack Fauci and stuff in America. And I've got no problem with that inherently. It's mainly that he is pandering to a right-wing / centrist audience who probably do not share his actual politics, and now he's garnered this following that do have more conservative politics. He constantly tries to pander to them, so it might come as no surprise that when the Queen passes away, he does not say anything like how he would used to talk about the royal family and the Queen, because he's scared of upsetting his new followers, which probably do like the Queen more because they are more conservative. So just like my videos on Russell Brand where I showed his changing views on like Israel-Palestine from 2014-15 to 2021 and stuff like that, that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to show you older clips of Russell Brand talking about the monarchy, and then we are going to contrast them with the recent clips of Russell Brand talking about the Queen in the wake of her passing. So all of that coming up for you today. Before we go any further, please like the video, and I guess in the comments, let me know, when was your first exposure to Russell Brand's, I guess, political views? He has been talking politics for like 15, 16 years at this point, mainly on the radio to start with, then YouTube. And then let me know, did you used to have a positive opinion of him? Also consider following me on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, and more importantly on Instagram if you just want to get into like my day-to-day life in Vietnam. I'm posting a lot on my stories about like what I've been doing here, like where I've been going, you know, pictures of museums I've been to, cool places. So if you care about any of that stuff, please consider following me on Instagram. Also, check out my Patreon. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, the benefits of which are getting access to the Discord server and getting my Nintendo Switch friend code. I am going to start posting exclusive content about my travels. I probably want to do a longer one about the month in Vietnam rather than post more like infrequent small updates. So I'll see how I feel about that going forward. Also check out the second channel, the Kavernacle Extra, and check out the subreddit, all down in the description. So I first became aware of Russell Brand's hatred for the monarchy in some of his older videos I came across while making The Downfall of Russell Brand, his political evolution on YouTube, plus Selling Out Palestine Part 1 that came out on the 11th of March 2022. So I just want to share you a couple clips of this, because this is just his general views on the royal family. But then upon researching for this video, I found loads of videos where he is calling out the Queen specifically, not just the royal family entirely. So have a look at a couple of these clips first.
Queen announces Queen's speech. Like, when they're doing these speeches about austerity and how, like, you know, given the limited resources, we're going to have to do fracking now, don't you ever sort of think, ain't you in a great big gold house? How poor are you? I mean, that is mad, isn't it? That shouldn't be happening anymore. We're a sophisticated species now. We've evolved beyond that. We don't need people in great big gold houses covered in medals for stuff they can't possibly have done. I mean, what would warrant that? That Han Solo at the end of Star Wars don't get that, do they? They just go, I appreciate what you've done with blowing up the Death Star. Look at him! I don't think there's no point in having a royal family no more, do you? Should we just get a shot of them? I think so. There are many arguments for not having a monarchy. A lot of them sort of like centre on the enormous cost of having one. It's for, the official figures are 40 million. It costs us 40 million a year to have royals, but if you include security and all their hosting that they do, and why wouldn't you? Because they do that. It's 200 million. Like, you might know that's the equivalent of having 9,000 nurses and 8,000 police. Seems like an odd economic system to employ. That's the thing that I can't get over. If we were starting from scratch right now, and so, like, we were like, right, we're going to build a society, and someone went, let's have a little old lady that each of us give some of our money to, and then they're really rich. They don't really have any responsibility. They live in a big palace. You'd go, why? What's the point in doing that? That's what's happened. When you say, I want the royal family, what you're saying is, I don't want 9,000 nurses.
So that was just some Russell Brand clips I found from like 2014. Now, like I said, I've been researching this video and found lots of stuff about the Queen, especially. And here's the thing with Russell Brand, right? I watch these old videos and I'm like, I 100% agree with nearly everything you're saying, and you're doing it in a funny way. And it's nice to hear a celebrity speak like this. But what gets depressing is this was Russell Brand in 2015, and in 2022, he is an unbearable, enlightened centrist who is being this way, in my opinion, for ego, for grifting, for clout, because he wants to be liked. But this is at a time where it was more controversial to say these things. So he absolutely goes off on the Queen here. I actually learned some things as well, because I don't remember this controversy, probably because I was like 19. But it was in March 2015, and he talks about the Queen paying her staff terribly, despite the fact she is one of the richest women in the world. So have a look at Russell absolutely destroy the Queen in this clip.
So the Queen, the richest woman in the world, is facing industrial action because of appalling low pay that she gives her workers and terrible allowances. Many castle staff are on 14 grand a year. They're on less than a living wage, but are expected to carry extra duties for no pay. Some of the extra duties include giving guided tours to paying visitors. The monarchy costs us, you, the taxpayer, 37 million a year, and every year they clock up another million. It's written into the law of our country that the Queen cannot receive less than the previous year. The value of the Queen's properties total 8.1 billion quid. Her personal wealth is 330 million quid. She's already got that, so you'd think you could afford to pay people more than 14 grand a year. You'd think that you could afford to give people more than 0-hour contracts. One has to be frugal. One don't know where one's next 330 million's coming from.
No lies told there by Russell, one of the richest women in the world at the time, paying her staff $14,000 a year and expecting them to go above and beyond for her service is, of course, gross, horrible, something that no one's going to talk about now she's passed away, and the whole country is falling over themselves to be insane about her death and pretend she was some great person when she benefited immensely off colonialism and just the royal family getting so many benefits at the taxpayer's expense, which is where Russell tackles this from more than I did. I was more focusing on the colonial theft and the colonialism coming from an Irish background. Russell very much focuses on the class element, which is helpful and a nice compliment, I think, to my own criticism. And it's just like nice to see that, because a lot of people back in the day and even today will not criticize the Queen and will not talk about her actual legacy. They will pretend she was literally a saint. Now, Russell did a small follow-up to this video where he had his own viewers say some comments to him about what they thought of what he said, and responding to that is pretty clear. Russell does not agree with the Queen. So have a look at this quick.
Some of your comments. Sizimavoid goes, the Queen can get the boot. Royalty's another redundant system protecting its own existence like capitalism. I agree with you there, Zizumavoid. A lot of these systems seem to exist primarily or almost solely to preserve their own existence. What is the function of capitalism except for self-preservation? It's got no real ideals, it's got no social ideals like, you know, we can change things and make things better, create new institutions. All it wants to do is protect itself and the band of privilege at the top. But I've never understood the argument the royal family brings a lot of money from tourism. Do you believe tourists come to England to get a selfie with the Queen? Yeah. Imagine trying to get one with her, you'd be shocked. I mean, I'd like the look of a royal wedding, but if the actual cost of it is a hegemony of inequality, that means an immobile system where everyone's getting shafted, knock it on the head. So unpatriotic, Russell. God save our Queen. I'm not unpatriotic. I love England. I just think by saving our Queen, we're destroying ourselves. I'm happy to give them 61p a year to stay around. It's not 61p, mate. It's freedom that you're paying. It's costing you a lot more than money to have her on your money.
So obviously pretty clear back then, Russell had no problem about saying his disagreements with the Queen herself. Not just monarchy, not just the royal family, the actual Queen. No problem at all. He was a fairly principled leftist. I massively applaud his old comments towards Israel-Palestine. Like, very, very interesting that he was even willing to say this. Massively against the grain in UK politics, where we're so beholden to the status quo and to power. Now, this whole video actually made me laugh. And that's the thing about Russell Brand. He is a funny guy. He's a funny guy when he's being himself. And in his new YouTube videos, he is not being himself. He has created this new image as this centrist ego grifter, a lot more polished. And if you notice, he's doing something that David Beckham did as well. He is purposefully reining in his accent and not allowing himself to be himself because he's trying to create this image. So this video was on the 2nd of June 2015, and it was a response to the Queen's speech. So basically, if people don't know, the Queen makes a speech about like the new government. This was just after the election, I believe, and talks about their priorities and how they will do it in her name. So she basically goes along with all the Tories' agenda if the Tories are in power. And Russell is basically roasting her because she's talking about like living within our means while wearing like probably like millions of pounds worth of jewels. And he says something very interesting here. So I basically said, if the Queen was such a good person, she would have abdicated the throne due to any of the many horrible colonial acts done in her name. She would be like, they are doing this in my name. They are killing people in my name. I will not stand for this anymore. I'm going to abdicate the throne. I cannot handle this on a human level. I cannot handle the evil being committed in the name of Queen Elizabeth II. Russell comes at it by saying, the only reason she can justify this insane wealth to herself is if she hates poor people. So again, this is what Russell was saying in 2015, and you guys are going to get a nice contrast for his response to the Queen's death at the end. But let's take a look at this clip. Genuinely pretty funny.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, my government will legislate in the interests of everyone in our country.
What about poor people? I do sometimes want to go to the Queen. What is the thing that you've got in your head that makes it all right for this to happen? Because it must be that you think that poor people are scum. Is it that? Because otherwise, how do you justify that mad, expensive hat? I'm afraid there is no money available for nothing. What's that thing on your head? The thing on your head made out of precious diamonds. I couldn't possibly do this job without my shiny, expensive hat.
Helping working people get on, supporting aspiration, giving new opportunities to the most disadvantaged.
I mean, the nerve. You could just take your hat off and go like that and build an hospital. I mean, that necklace, that's worth a couple of schools. I mean, like, people say that there's a value in having a monarchy. We've established that there isn't from a tourism perspective. From a spiritual perspective, all right, perhaps the idea of some focus of nationhood would be useful, but what does that nation stand for? It's a nation that stands for inequality, deception, and lying. So that's what our monarch is. What they are, visibly, is a symbol of inequality and privilege and antiquity, values that have no place in the modern world.
Obviously very clear he doesn't like the Queen personally, making a lot of valid points about how she can sit there on a gold chair with this insane wealth and talk about all these issues like she has no effect on it, like she doesn't benefit personally from the economic system the Tories maintain. And obviously a great point I mentioned earlier, if the Queen was a great person, how could she justify this insane wealth to herself while there are so many food banks open, while so many people are starving? And let's remember, she was Queen since 1953, right? Think of how many situations in Britain where there were loads and loads of poor people starving after the war, people still on rations after the war and things like that. And she has this insane wealth. This insane wealth where she doesn't give away any of it. She accumulates more and more every year, as Russell was outlining earlier, and she became one of the most wealthy women in the world, and that wasn't by playing by the rules. Is the Queen a great businesswoman, or does she just own loads and loads of land and have loads of wealth from colonial theft? Now Russell just goes on to talk about this a bit more, so let's have a watch.
My government will continue with its long-term plan to provide economic stability and security at every stage of life.
Every stage? Well, that means it's constantly going to happen. Born, there's some security there. Childhood, some security there. Getting old, some security there. There's none, is there? We all know that this is a total farce. People like the Queen, like my grandparents, God rest their souls, if they heard me talking about the Queen like this, they'd be, oh no, Russell, no, she's lovely, the Queen. Like, and I've had that crap put in me. We can't help it. Every time we look at a pound note or a bloody stamp, there she is. You know, but the fact is that this is a great big gold smothered lot of bollocks.
And reducing the deficit, so Britain lives within its means.
We've got to live within our means. For example, the very idea that you'd be smothered in jewels and travel around in a golden carriage at a time where people are starving on the street seems like a sustainable lifestyle.
My government will bring forward legislation to reform trade unions.
Yeah, I mean, it's these trade unions. That's the problem. Working people coming together to have rights is a pain in the arse.
With legislation encouraging employment by capping benefits.
Encouraging employment by letting you starve to death if you don't get a job.
So yeah, old Russell is funny. Old Russell is principled. I totally agree with him about the absurdity of someone so wealthy, not only so wealthy, someone who is wearing clothes that would be worth so much money and sitting on a chair that is worth so much money, talking about reforming trade unions, meaning trying to break trade unions, and talking about Britain living within their means. Queen, you never lived within your means. Your whole entire life, you lived well beyond your means, and it was not earned. If anyone needs proof that meritocracies are not real, then the Queen is a just lovely, visible figurehead for that. And I was watching the funeral today, and I was watching all the soldiers, I was watching all this displays of wealth and stuff like that, and I was thinking, how much money is that costing me in taxes? When I die, part of my savings and my family will have to pay for my own funeral. I haven't heard anything about the royal family paying for the Queen's own funeral. Most of the people participating in that funeral are employees of the state. Where do they get their payments from? Where do they get their pensions from? Oh, right. It's the UK taxpayer. I'm so happy the Queen lived within her means and even died within her means. So if you are anti-monarchist, which everyone should be, but even if you're just a general person, what Russell's saying there, you just can't argue with for the most part. Like, literally very good points made, and coming from a famous celebrity who's probably worth quite a lot himself as well, it is nice to hear, because lots of celebrities are socially very liberal, but they aren't willing to be controversial because it will affect their career. And Russell was very much willing to be controversial and stand up for what he believed in. I cover that in the other videos, and you can see it pretty clearly here. He speaks about the Queen and the royal family in a way most celebrities in Britain would never ever dream of. So that is why I was disappointed but not surprised that Russell Brand has seemingly done a 180. Now, we're going to go through two of his videos. The first one is reacting straight away to the Queen's death. The other one is reacting to some protests to the monarchy after the Queen's death. Now, I'm not saying Russell Brand in these videos is endorsing the monarchy at all, but I do feel like he's trying to be an enlightened centrist because he doesn't want to alienate his new followers, showing that he is not a principled person anymore. He is an ego grifter. Because it's so different to how he used to be that I cannot rationalize it in my mind that he's had some sort of political awakening where now he just doesn't believe anything he used to believe and tries to be a centrist about everything. In my mind, he's just trying to have as big a reach as possible, and that's why he's playing into a lot of right-wing framing about issues, including issues of, I don't know, wealth disparity and things like that. He never comes at stuff from a left-wing position anymore. So let's have a look at the first video. I wrote some notes down for this, so sorry if I start talking and maybe the exact clip hasn't been played. You can go watch the whole video for yourself, and I will just say, you've watched a lot of videos so far in this video, and you come away like, that's what Russell Brand thinks. Go watch these videos and tell me what Russell Brand thinks, because it's just a bunch of centrist nonsense where he's just trying to please everyone. So let's go through this together.
I'm wearing black as a mark of respect to the many people in services, to the older generation, to the people even younger than me that will consider Queen Elizabeth II to be a significant figure and a representative of our nation. I'm wearing black too because she's a human being who has been ubiquitously present in the lives of everybody. She's been a queen, our queen, for 70 years. And she is a ubiquitous, unquestioned part of our culture. Even when you inquire about the nature of monarchy, the nature of power, the corruption that those symbols can bring about, even when you consider that no power of that magnitude can ever be achieved without enforcement, corruption, imperialism, colonization, there's a level where the Queen is present in all of our lives that goes beyond morality. It's an unquestioned and seemingly natural order. It is the symbol of our nation. There is no Britain in some ways without the monarchy, for Britain is a monarchy. I am respectful of the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II and respectful of the death of Queen Elizabeth II as I would be of any human being, but this is not any human being. This is a symbol, and symbols can be mutable. There is not a universal Queen Elizabeth II. She will mean many things to many people, but she means something to all of us, and I'm respectful of that fact. I am respectful of the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II in so much as she was an individual that devoted her life to what she did, and she played the hand she was dealt as well as she could have done. I do sometimes want to go to the Queen. What is the thing that you've got in your head that makes it all right for this to happen? Because it must be that you think that poor people are scum. Is it that? I'm respectful to the many people that will feel deep sadness now, and I include myself among them, because the world is changing and Britain has just changed significantly.
So like I'm saying, it's pretty clear Russell doesn't like the monarchy or doesn't agree with the monarchy, so we can agree that he hasn't changed in that respect. But I do find the framing very curious, because I think the passing of Elizabeth II, just like I've used it for, is to teach people either about colonialism or how people who have families who used to be colonised by the British Empire, how they feel about this and how they want it to be the end of the British monarchy. And you can say that very strongly. If you're a principled person, I don't know why you describe the death like this. I don't know why you talk about respecting the Queen, respecting her legacy, respecting who she was as a person, wearing black as a mark of respect to the people who do care about her passing. I don't understand this at all, because as someone on his channel who constantly criticises people in power like Justin Trudeau, for example, but then refrains from talking about the real legacy of Elizabeth II, because in my mind, Russell knows a lot of his new audience, like the Queen, he's too scared to say his real opinions, which are pretty clear to you. I've played you all these clips. Do you think Russell in 2015, if the Queen died, will be talking like this? 100% he would not, because back then he still said what he thought, he was still principled, and as an actor he's clearly, in my opinion, now playing a Russell Brand character. Even his accent has changed, he's far more deliberate with his words. Could he even be reading off a script? It felt a lot more natural before. I think that all just shows you what Russell feels is important now. It's not important to speak truth to power in a more traditional way. It's all about making sure you don't offend anyone by saying you recognize why people care, you respect people who are upset and stuff like that, but you personally want to maybe reassess the monarchy in the coming weeks and months. Again, very, very weak from Russell here. Nothing like how he used to be. Very, very weak from anyone who considers himself an anti-monarchist, because now is the time, as people are trying to make us accept Charles III, now is the time to talk about the role of the monarchy in British society, not be like the Labour Party who say God save the Queen immediately as the Queen dies, very strong principled socialists that they are. And that is something Russell should be doing as well. It's something that me, the last true English leftist, have been saying on this channel. Anyone worth any leftist credentials will never be talking about the death of a monarch like this. So because Russell said some stuff I kind of agree with in that video, I don't want to be too harsh on him for that one, even though I am harsh on him for this. But the one that was absolutely bizarre to me is he was doing another video called I Can't Believe This Happened, where he was talking about the protests against the royal family. And most of this video was just more centrist garbage, just trying to please everyone. But one thing that stood out to me the most is he talks about this protest in Scotland where this young man shouted at Prince Andrew that he was a sick old man. And I think that's very well deserved. Of course, I agree with what he said, and I agree with his right to protest as the royal family are trying to make the whole nation grieve, literally walk throughout all its realms and stuff like that. Now, Russell has an interesting take on this in that he says he agrees with the sentiments of both, including the people, members of the public, who assaulted the protester because he said something bad about one of the princes of England. So check out this clip from Russell.
Disgusting! Wait, I've done nothing wrong.
In this moment, I suppose my personal impression is that that's a moment of real humanity and the reality of death. But of course, there is pageantry embedded in that. I feel like if I was there, I feel like I'd say, oh, mate, bloody hell. I think many people are concerned about the Prince Andrew situation. Is this the right time? Isn't it difficult in this culture war to not pick a side? Do you see how you're being invited to pick a side? I can sympathise with the people that felt angered and hurt and wounded and shoved that bloke because they're pissed off because they feel like they've lost someone or something that they love. That's what they feel. And I can also empathise with this guy who's feeling like, well, I don't want to play along with this systemic narrative that plays into ideas around elitism and privilege. How do we, therefore, hold together those two ideas? Do we accept now, oh, there's this thing called progressivism and there's this thing called traditionalism, and they're totally different cultures, and we're going to have to accept the validity of both of them, and they're going to have to live independently and separately. But because we have this idea of a nation that incorporates 60 million people or 300 million people, they have to integrate and live together, and that's going to cause all of this tension.
It seems very weird from someone who used to be a leftist anti-monarchist is that he is siding with two dudes who felt they should assault a young man for exercising his democratic right to protest. And I love the police there, where they arrest the guy for shouting something. They don't arrest the two thugs for assaulting him, because that's the country we live in. Assault people who protest the monarchy, that's fine. Protest the monarchy, get the police to harass you, arrest you, and in some cases going on throughout the UK, lock you up or even arrest you just for holding eggs near the vicinity of a royal. So that's the enlightened centrism Russell Brand is engaging in right now. Yeah, say you see the mindset and sympathise with two probably Scottish royalists who have a lovely history of oppressing Catholics and Irish people throughout Scotland and Ireland. As much as you sympathise with the guy protesting Prince Andrew trying to use the death of his mum to rehabilitate his image and get back into the public's good graces. And this is just disappointing because Russell Brand, again, one of the few people in celebrity culture who would be very, very principled on certain issues, and now has probably been attending the Jimmy Dore school of supposedly being more left-wing, but agreeing with the right-wing framing of everything and trying not to offend your new right-wing fan base, because that's very much what Russell Brand has become. And it's just so funny that all Russell Brand's opinions from 2015 are very relevant to today and are very relevant to the conversation, and he just won't speak like that. And he won't dare speak like that because he knows if he comes out and talks about how the Queen paid her staff poorly, how the Queen benefited from all of us, how the Queen was a massive symbol herself to inequality and colonialism, he knows that the American simps of the royal family, especially American conservatives, we made that video on Friday, and of course a lot of English people who love the royal family, especially right now, would get very mad at him and would say, oh, Russell, now's not the time. Have some respect for the Queen. Have some respect for the family. She was a grandmother and mother, don't you know, Russell? Can't examine her role in horrible colonialism and capitalism at all. But again, in my opinion, it's clear Russell has sold out. Not for money necessarily, but for clout and for YouTube subscribers and an audience. And of course, that comes with monetary benefits, I'm sure. I'm sure he's making a fair bit of money from the YouTube channel now and his various podcasts and stand-up shows and all that stuff. But again, very sad to see someone who was once a refreshing, rare left-wing voice against the powerful in UK politics just become another enlightened centrist, liberal, I don't know, talking head on YouTube with really nothing of value to say. And like I said, you watch those old videos from 2015, they may be short clips, but he gets to the point, he says something interesting. You watch a 15-minute video now of him talking about the Queen, literally you have learned nothing about his positions, and you've learned nothing, and you've just wasted 15 minutes, and that is Russell Brand in 2022. Anyway, I hear a bin van coming down my road, gonna quit while I'm ahead. That is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.